So, given that lust is one of the seven deadly sins, what do we think about sexuality and lust and incest and that sort of thing, and as well as gender roles and sexuality in this film?
All those incestuous overtones
Yes,
with
very
Caleb.
much, very much.
But poor dude doesn't have anything to look at otherwise. I mean, it's either his sister or his mom.
Yeah.
Or the Witch of the Wood, eventually.
Yes, or the Witch of the Wood, yes.
Yeah, and she knows just how to get him, right? She knows to target lust. Yeah. I thought it was very interesting looking at feminism as embodied by Thomason, because she is, she strikes me as strong. She's protective. She tries to offer consolation and love to Caleb. Honestly, it breaks my heart when she's telling mother. She wants her mother to love her so bad. She wants that acceptance, and after it's revealed that she didn't really take the cup, the way she is about the goat, she's like, I'll go bed them. I'll go bed the animals down. Like she's a humbler than she was before. She wants that acceptance so much. But she's a strong female. I mean, she kind of reminds me, if you know, like the Book of Judy, it's this apocryphal story from the Bible. It's she kills Holofernes, the Persian commander. It's kind of this story that was taken out of the Bible because it had a strong female in it. As several books were, several books were placed in the Apocrypha or other like Deuterocanonical. I don't know about Deuterocanonical, but at least apocryphal books, because they had strong females in them. And she takes that motivation to conjure Black Phillip at the end. She strikes me as strong, and that maybe that's part of her downfall. I noticed that she, like I said, she's kind of a Christ-like figure. She is up on the tree at the end, like Christ, and she, with her mother, she kills her mother at the end, and that is a rite of passage for her. Like that destruction of the matriarchal line and destruction of the last of the family is kind of what finally leads her into actually becoming a witch, which I think the title of the movie to me is, it can refer to the Witch of the Wood, but I think it also refers to Thomason. And we were talking about her name, right? How Thomas means twin, and then it's a male name, right? And it's combined with sin. Maybe her twin is the Witch of the Wood, right? Or maybe her twins, you could read her twin as Caleb or various other things. But that strong feminine role, I think obviously something Christians hate. They would associate with otherness. They would associate with witches. And that scene where she kills her mom, in the end, her mom is dead and she's on top of her, and Thomason's between her legs. And so this is like a rebirth, right? A rebirth from a dead mother. And I thought that was really interesting in terms of like matriarchal roles in the film.
And I noticed that it seemed like the witches and Black Phillip were trying to see if both of them would come, the mom and Thomason.
Yeah.
That seemed to be reflected in the way they wore their hair. When Ghost, Caleb, and Sam, hallucination, we're not entirely sure, come to Kate near the end of the movie, after Caleb has died, and Will boarded up Thomason and the twins in the barn.
With Black Phillip.
Yeah, with Black Phillip.
With Black Phillip.
Yeah.
And
parenting choice.
Yeah, and the witch shows up in the little barn, sucking on Flora's teats. Over in the house, baby Sam, sucking on breastfeeding from Kate, turns into a raven, the witch's familiar, or the witch herself, and Kate's hair is down, and it stays down from that scene to when Thomason kills her, and then Thomason, her hair remains up even during the struggle with her mom. She falls asleep, wakes up, goes to Black Phillip later, and only then her hair is down. And every scene with the witch, whether she's old or young, her hair is down. The same with the other witches.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting, yeah. And that would obviously be like, having your hair up would be more of a sign of modesty, and you would be downplaying your sexuality, whereas having it down would be more playing it up, or being, that being part of that personality, yeah.
it also speaks to like the traditional feminine looks and aspects of like covering your hair versus uncovering it and
Right.
having long hair, whereas like Caleb and Jonah and
Mercy.
Mercy. Hard to tell with Mercy because she's always in her bonnet,
Yeah,
but they all seem to have short hair.
Yeah.
And
and that bonnet I think is again imparting modesty.
And Will, strangely enough, also has long hair, but I think that harkens back to more of his status as a wealthy man, because only commoners, only the poor, only slaves had short hair. Historically,
I see.
if you were wealthy enough, you could have your hair long. It showed that you were a freeman.
Anything? Oh yeah, go ahead.
At least among like white European society.
Sure.
Yeah.
Caveat there.
Yeah.
And the fact with the Will's hair, Will's long hair, and that could also be true amongst those that were rich, that were rich and wealthy, in like 17th 18th through 19th century America. Please fact check me on this, but yeah, it was such an American standard for a few hundred years after the burning times, after North America was starting to be colonized by Europeans, that the idea with people with long hair are from nobility, also gives to the idea of American people a few hundred years afterward to be amongst the rich and the wealthy.
I also wonder, and this kind of goes in a different direction, but we can combine these themes. Thinking about his long hair, I wonder, there are some ways in which he is Christ-like, but he's like a corrupted Christ, or he's maybe an example of how Christ is corrupted, and then Yahweh or God the Father is corrupted. So I wondered if that was to make his appearance more Christ-like. Even when he says, I think his last line before he dies is, "Corruption, thou art my father."
Yeah.
Right. That could refer to God the Father or the devil.
Yeah.
Right. And especially if we take a seditious reading of this movie, it really could be either one. We're not sure about damnation or salvation in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even with his, main sin being pride, that could make him more Christ-like if Christ is prideful, especially God the Father is very prideful. We had kind of been starting to get into material goods. You want to go ahead and do this? We can.
Sure.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. As we mentioned before, they had glass back in England, so that's a sign. I think that they were pretty wealthy, and maybe they had fallen on harder times, maybe through pride, or I'm not really sure. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
As far as like tying it into the 7 deadly sins, I would say that Kate's would be among greed and gluttony. Gluttony not as in like, people typically associate it with food, but like as far as
the silver cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as like leaning more toward Catholicism, but like with like an overarching Christian sin thing, gluttony was more in line with greed in that you have all of these things already, so you want more from others.
Ah, I see.
Mm.
Yeah.
and you can be gluttonous for material possessions just as
Sure.
like, greedy people would have been considering, like, more along the lines of, like, Jeff Bezos buying a 13th yacht rather than paying his workers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the silver cup, that one was interesting. I'm not completely sure what to make about that. There could be Holy Grail associations. There could be. I know Hebe's cup is like she's cupbearer for the gods on Olympus, and doesn't that bring them youth? In the sense that
the nectar inside of it does.
Right, in the way that
Yeah.
maybe drinking blood brings the witches youth and makes them look younger. Could be an association. You mentioned something interesting, Alex, about the reappearance of the silver cup at some point in the film.
Yeah, when Ghost Caleb and Sam show up, when Kate wakes up in the middle of the night, as she gets up, you can and lights the candle. You see in the background the candlelight flashing off something, and there's her cup right there where it was supposed to be.
Yes. So, 3 things in this case have been brought back to her: 2 children and her cup. She did say about the cup, she said, it's not for vanity that I want it back, right? And she had even mentioned selling it, right?
Yeah.
So she might have done the same thing with it, but I thought that was an interesting exchange.
And she said whenever she was accusing Thomason of taking it, she said, "Where's my father's cup?"
Right.
Yeah.
So when she said it's not for vanity, I assume she was trying to say it's for family association, right?
Yeah.
But then she even talks about selling it as well, so yeah, I thought that was interesting. And,
Just a random thought, but it could be something of a religious item. If like I know, like in like with Catholicism and stuff, taking the mass, there's the cup.
right.
I don't know if like there's a Protestant equivalent, like if
There could be.
or like
Well, there are Protestant religions, like I was forced to go to a Southern Baptist church as a kid, and we still did the wafers and the wine, or grape juice,
So it could have been like
It wasn't. There wasn't the idea of transubstantiation,
Yeah.
but they were symbolically supposed to be like the flesh and blood of Christ.
So it could have been the communion cup
Right.
of,
It could
their
be,
families.
yes. Oh, it could. That's very interesting, because I was thinking that their materialism is kind of at odds with it. Like, obviously, greed, gluttony are deadly sins. They're supposed to be very modest. They're not supposed to have a lot of money. But like, if you look, like, one of the chief differences between them and the elders is the elders have material resources, right? They have crops. They have a settlement. They have things like that. They probably have maybe medicine that because they talk about taking Caleb to the doctor there and finding out if this is natural ill or not. And it's like they are striving to, and what they're striving to do in terms of materialism, right? They're striving in many ways to farm. Like, agriculture is a major source of material wealth back then, more than probably money or like jewels or things back then. I don't know that for sure, but it seems like that's very important. And what they're doing, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about nature, but they are trying to take over the wilderness and make it their own, and then draw material goods from that. When William wants to go back, when they're talking about going back to the settlement, he is talking about we've got to get help for Thomas, and we've got to get help for Caleb. If Caleb isn't dead by then, but he says we've got to get help for the family, and he talks about I've got to go harvest whatever corn we can, for there's got to be some fruit or something that's not rotten on this plantation. I can't remember the exact line. But he says, we've got to take this crop back because we can't return empty-handed. It's another manifestation of his pride, and it's directly linked toward farming the earth, and and in that sense, civilizing, or in a sense, destroying the wilderness, which is obviously the witches are allied with nature and wilderness.